Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Pop and Prose podcast. You will see, if you're one of the people who are watching the show, someone to my side, and that is my friend Robert Chazz Chute. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Hey, thank you, buddy. You're a buddy. You're my brother from another mother dragon.
Now, some of you probably, especially if followed me back in my podcasting days about 10 years ago, you know that Robert was very active on podcasts back then. As a matter of fact, you were a guest on my old show, Buddy's Writing Show, which was at least 10 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, I think
Oh
so. I
man.
think we think we did that in 2013 or 2014.
If the next 10 years go as fast as the last 10 years, I'm screwed.
Boy, let me try that in English. Robert is a suspense writer. He's written several novels. You're now writing, as well as I know you've got a book that you've been working on that is going to see release probably in the next year or so. Uh,
Depends on what the agents say. I'm pitching to agents this weekend, actually. I'm going to
oh,
see.
that's awesome. I wish you luck with that. And I was
Thank
going
you.
to say that you're now writing on Medium as well. You've got your own blog that you have on your own website, but now you're on Medium, and it's cool to have you there.
Thanks to your encouragement.
Oh, well,
I,
thank you. It's a fun platform to write on
it
and to
is.
read on. I know a lot of people who don't write on there, but they just love reading because there's such a wide variety of things on there. It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and it's at least, I would say, 68% more intelligent than other social media.
I would think that's a pretty accurate number.
No, it's science, buddy. 68%. Science.
I didn't know you were going to bring science on the show, Robert.
I was told to copy math.
I better have some more caffeine from my cool cup.
Cheers.
So, I don't think I mentioned what we're talking about today, but, if you've tuned into the show, you probably see the title of it there, and it is Our Favorite Funny Songs, where Robert and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the fact that I wanted him on the show because I just think he's a cool guy, and I know he's a great guest, but we were talking about novelty songs, how we both loved novelty songs, songs with humor, and thought boy, there's just so much to choose from. Thought it'd make a good show, and fingers crossed that it will.
It will be.
It
That's
will be.
science.
And just I thought I would just mention real quick what a novelty song is. I was talking to my wife Lisa, and she was unfamiliar with the term, and I'm not all that surprised at that because I don't think you really hear it used that much nowadays. It became a popular like in the 50s, 60s. Now I think it's just, humor songs or funny songs. But basically, the definition, at least according to Wikipedia, is a novelty song is a type of song built upon a novel concept such as a gimmick, a piece of humor, or some sort of sample of pop culture. And I know we've got some in here that sample some things that were popular in pop culture at the time that they were recorded. And we're each going to cover about 10 songs. We've got some that we both chose the same song, remarkably, considering how many novelty and funny songs are out there. But Robert, I want you to start, please, with one of yours favorites.
Sure. My number one, in no particular order, would be Shut Up, You Face. So, I think I want to say I was in grade seven for everything, but I don't know. This was released in late 1980. And it was a novelty song by Joe Dolce. My wife heard it a lot. I grew up in Nova Scotia, so I didn't hear it so much, but she grew up in an Italian neighborhood. So she heard that song a lot. It was "What's the matter, you? Hey, it's a nicer place. Say, shut up, you face." And I think what surprised me when I looked into this was it was based on Joe Dolce's childhood, where his family members would speak broken English. And I think what surprised me was how popular it really was. So um, it was number one in a whole bunch of countries.
Wow.
And uh, looking at the research for this show, I delved heavily into Wikipedia, so I know everything now. And over and over again, I thought that these songs were from artists who, when I used the word artist, I meant it ironically. So I was being kind of a dick about it. I didn't think, oh, th these people. Like they had one kind of that one hit wonder thing
Hmm.
where you go, that's a weird little song that captured people's imagination for about a month, maybe a month and a half. And what surprised me over and over again was the number of people who they wrote a novelty song, but they had a vast career besides that.
Yes, yeah, I have some of the artists on my list are the same way.
Well, I remember watching the video. I loved Corey. Was it Corey Hart? Sunglasses at Night.
Oh yeah, yeah, Corey Hart. Yeah, he had a few
Yeah,
good
yeah,
songs.
yeah. Good looking guy. I thought he was going to be in Hollywood forever. I was surprised how long he toured. Like, Sunglasses at Night is not a novelty song by any stretch, but it was the only one I knew from him. And I thought, what happens to these guys when they retire? And he only retired a few years ago to his own private island because you can go pretty far on one big hit.
You can.
So when I looked into this guy and the guy who wrote The Streak, we'll talk about him in a little bit. They had big careers
Wow.
and they lasted and they wrote other people's songs and they, you know, I underestimated them and that is totally on me, my fault. I'm sorry, music gods. Uh, but so with Shut Up You Face, what got me was there were 50 different foreign language cover versions.
Oh wow. Okay.
I'm
So
having a hard time. Like, how does "Shut Up You Face"? Do you say How does it translate into Albanian? Yeah,
yes, yeah, boy, that's a good question there, because you would think that it would lose a lot in another language, especially if you're doing, it's like an Italian phrase, or it plays up the Italian, stereotype and things like that. So yeah, that is interesting. I would be curious to hear other versions of it.
well, it played regularly on Dr. Demento,
Okay.
which is kind of a launching pad for a whole lot of novelty songs. But interestingly, in Quebec, "Shut Up You Face" reached #1 for 12 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, and "Shut Up You Face," it's a funny little song, but #1 for 12 weeks. Were there no other people writing songs then?
And that came out, when did you say? 1980?
1980, yeah, it was in the US that peaked at number 53 in 1981 on the
Okay.
Billboard 100.
I was going to say that I don't think I knew it at the time. So it doesn't. If it would only got up to 53 in the U.S., it probably didn't get played a lot here on radio stations, or maybe. Well, boy, that was an interesting time here because, of course, you had like sort of disco dying out and like other things coming up, like bands like Air Supply. Where it was a very interesting time period in music. Yeah, I don't think I heard that song till years later, but when I did, I sure got a kick out of it.
I'm just trying to picture Casey Kasem on America's Top 40 doing "Shut Up Your Face." It's like, after this long distance dedication to somebody's dead dog, we're gonna play "Shut Up You Face," and it's like, oh God.
What's funny is we have I don't know if you have Sirius XM, the satellite service up where you are, but it's a whole variety of different kinds of stations. But on one of the oldie stations on there, every week, at least once, they play one of his old shows, one of his old top 40 broadcasts in its entirety. And
Really?
it's amazing because I had it on the other day. I was just driving around, and it was like something from 1972, and it's like, yeah, we got the latest hit now from the big heartthrob sensation Donny Osmond, and you're listening to this, and it's like, it's amazing because it was the original broadcast and for all 40 songs, and it's kind of neat because, well, Casey was quite good at what he did. He
Hmm.
had a great delivery. He would throw in like interesting little trivia bits about the different entertainers, much like you and I are doing today. We're sort of like the Casey Kasems of
I
the
believe he
21st
also
century.
was Robin on the Justice League.
Yes, that's right. I
Mhm.
forgot he did
And
the voice of Robin.
I think he was Mark on Battle of the Planets,
Oh,
if you
okay.
remember that cartoon.
Yeah, I only vaguely remember that one. I don't think I watched that one much.
Oh, I was obsessed. When you hear Casey Kasem talking, do you go through a time machine? Do you feel like your beard is getting darker?
Yeah, or no beard at all, of course. But yeah, Casey was really something. And yeah, that song, that's a funny song.
Have you ever heard the clip of Casey Kasem losing it on his producer?
No, no.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's worth looking up. He he's trying to make a transition from a happy song to um, an ode to a dead dog. That was what I was saying. Where he's going, I, somebody's poor dog died, and I've got to read a dedication to him. And we're coming out of a happy song. We're going into a happy song. What's wrong with you people?
Oh, that's funny. What was Casey's thing he always ended his show with? Remember, it was like some inspirational saying, like "Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars," something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
something like that. Yeah, he was entertaining. If you younger folks out there aren't familiar with Casey Kasem, check out some of his shows. You can find him probably on YouTube or, like I said, on different satellite services.
Oh my God. I really hope that people are familiar enough with a bunch of these songs so it's not like, here's two old guys talking about the old days. We had a wireless.
Well,
We
that's
got the
going to
news
tie
of
in
the war
perfectly
from the
with my
front.
first song here because this song is even older than we are. Shall I?
Please.
Okay, I'm going to start off with, like Robert, I'm not doing these in like order of preference or anything. It's just kind of random. But this is the oldest song. Oh, wait, second oldest song now that I say it. But anyway, it is Papa Oo Mau Mau by the Rivingtons. This song came out in 1962. If you don't know it, it's sort of this, it's a novelty. It's sort of a nonsensical doo-wop song. That's how it was described on Wikipedia. And this band also had other hits around that same time period. Matter of fact, they had uh, two hits like within a year or so of each other that were actually combined into another hit for someone else. There was Papa Oo Mau Mau. This one I'm talking about that came out in 1962. In 1963, they had a very popular song too called "The Bird's the Word." And that same year, a group called the Trashmen combined both of those songs. They basically stole them, I guess, into a hit song called "Surfin' Bird." And that's I think was even a bigger success than the other two individually. But Papa Oo Mau Mau, it's just kind of like I said, it's sort of nonsensical. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's really really catchy. It's just got that. Do you know it, Robert?
I know an anecdote about this,
Interesting.
and it's barely an anecdote, but it is fun. So
I
I
like fun.
can't tell you what comic it was. I collected comics in the 80s to a financially devastating degree. And
You and me both.
there was this graphic novel. I can't remember what it was, but what I remember was there was like a anti-aircraft gun, and uh, in the comic, the sound that the anti-aircraft made was pa 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 ooh mau mau.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's great. I love stuff like that. I love when you see stuff like that in comics or elsewhere. They could get away with that kind of thing a lot in comic books.
Just a little Easter egg for somebody. Well, how many people picked up on that? There was me, not the guy I showed it to. Maybe it was just for me. I don't know.
Okay, that's great. I'd love when I see stuff like that. Now, this song, it was years before I heard the original version of Papa Oo Mau Mau. I know it because actually multiple acts had recorded it, but I knew it because the Beach Boys did a version of it on their 1964 live album called Beach Boys Concert, which was one of the first albums that I had when I was a kid. That was one of the first bands I became a fan of was the Beach Boys. And I used to play that live album all the time. And they just did a silly, fun version of it in concert. And that's what I knew first and first fell in love with. And then, like I said, years later, I found the Rivingtons version. And it's a fun song. If you don't know it, kids, check it out. That's about all I got on that one.
Well, I want to talk about convoy. As it
Oh,
takes
C.W.
lad, look like
McCall.
we got us a convoy. So it was a character co-created and voiced by Bill Fries along with Chip Davis. And it became the number one song on both the country and pop charts in the US and is listed 98th among Rolling Stone's 100 greatest country songs of all time.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, so it kind of challenges like, is this a novelty song? Uh,
Yeah.
if it's really that good, can it be? But I don't know. And I lyrically, like it has a lot of fun packed into it. But the vibe of it is so much like Well, them Duke boys really got themselves in jelly this time.
It's very much like that, and I know it makes me think too of Smokey and the Bandit, which was around this
Mhm.
about the same time period.
Well, 1975, they used it for the movie Convoy, and I watched that sometime last year again, as I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. And Chris Christopherson, I he was one of those guys I thought he's going to live forever. He can't die. Um, it's so sad to see him go.
Yeah,
Um,
just in the past, I don't know, past year, I guess,
yeah,
right?
I think it was last year.
Yeah.
And although Convoy, it's an entertaining movie. I'm not sure it's a good movie, but it is an entertaining movie. But
I really don't remember. I think the last time I saw it was in the early 80s when they used to show it like over and over and over again on cable.
right, well, there's one particular scene that irked me because they have a bar fight, but it's one of those infamous or movie fight scenes where you go, did they really mean to do that? Because it looks really lame. In in the Daredevil with Ben, where they have this he and Elektra have a fight in a uh it's kind of a play fight kind of thing
Hmm.
in a kids playground.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
When you watch it, you go, it looks like they were doing everything at kind of half speed, like as a practice. And then somebody said, "Yeah, we got it." Like, you don't got it. It- so it's a bad fight scene. The fight choreography is like they quit too early. But with Convoy, you get this same feeling of it's this kind of feels like a bunch of kids doing a bar fight scene. It's really poor.
I need to watch that again. It's been so
Oh,
long. It's like I said, it's
it,
been over 40 years. Who was the lead actress in that? Was that Ally McGraw?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, she was really something back then. Quite an
Yeah.
actress.
She was the seat covers, I think, is what they refer to women on CB at that time. The whole CB stuff was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was.
I was looking through kind of the breakdown where they talk about what they were protesting. So in the song, they're protesting the 55-mile-per-hour speed limit. And
Hmm.
I remember when that was introduced in the United States, they had a whole bunch of commercials going, "Do the double nickel."
Yes,
Uh,
yes, I remember that too.
yeah, and that was introduced because in response of the 1973 oil crisis. So um, there's a whole bunch of CB slang that's in there. I didn't realize that chicken coops referred to the way stations. Uh,
Oh.
but the song goes, we ain't gonna pay no toll. Uh, and there's that conversation between Rubber Duck and Pigpen and Sodbuster and all that stuff. Um, the narration, the CB chatter were all McCall, C.W. McCall, and they talk about Holland Hogs, and there's there's a lot of CB lingo that is lost because does anybody have CBs
Yeah,
anymore?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't even know how frequently truckers use that anymore. I mean, I remember, well, at the time the song came out, I mean, it was everybody had it. I remember my dad having one in his car, in his station wagon, that was very much like Clark Griswold's station wagon in the Vacation movie.
Yeah, yeah.
But then we had one in our kitchen, and I remember having a little paperback book that had like 100 best CB slogans or
I had
phrases.
that book too.
Did you really?
Yes, from Radio Shack.
And I would sit there in the kitchen and I'd talk on the CB. I had my own handle. Uh, and it was a big sensation there for a little while.
Yeah, it was. I can't even say how long it was because it seemed like it just flew. But the stuff about um what I didn't realize was the convoy begins at night on June 6th on the 10 I-10, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I-10 just outside of Shaky Town. Shaky Town is Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Um, and it's clean clear to Flagtown, Flagstaff, Arizona. Put the hammer down, that's auxiliary pedal. I knew that. Tulsa Town, Tulsa. Bears and Smokies, that's police. What I didn't realize was the connection between Smokey the Bear and state police was that they have the same campaign hats, the state police
Oh,
and
okay, yeah. You
The
know,
Forest Service.
and that never really hit me, but yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so their
Yeah.
mascot is a Smokey Bear, so that's how they come up with
Oh,
those
okay.
bears up there. That's a helicopter, all this stuff. And 11 long-haired friends of Jesus in a chartreuse microbus. Uh, there's so much fun of that. The crazy thing, and I'm wondering if you knew this, there was a sequel to this to Convoy. Did you know that?
To the song or the movie?
The song.
I
It
did
was
not know that.
Round the World with the Rubber Duck.
It was also by credited to C.W.
Yep,
McCall.
yep. It was consistent with the previous songs. Uh, and he's driving a Peterbilt around the world, I guess.
I did
Uh,
not know
I,
this.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, there's if we don't know about that song, there's probably a good reason.
Have you checked it out after learning about it?
No, no, I, I, I had the experience of watching that terrible bar fight, and I thought, okay, I get it.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, yeah, I remember I had the little 45 record of Convoy. I can't remember what I remember it being like blue and yellow or blue and gold or something like that, but I used to play the heck out of that.
I think I had it on a. I used to get these. They were red records sometimes. KTEL records. I
Oh
think.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
KTEL had, oh boy, it seemed like every other week they were releasing different compilations back then of different, hit songs, and they were a lot of fun.
they were because what. It's this is funny. I've had some arguments with people about B-sides because the one thing about the KTEL records was you got a bunch of good songs, but with a whole lot of records, unless you're doing like hot shots or um, very few artists, will hit a home run every time. You
Yeah.
don't have a whole lot of multiple hits. So when I was a kid, I remember there was a song that was released from a band called Cats Can Fly, and it was the song was on the A side and said, and nothing on the B side, and there was nothing on the B side.
Oh wow.
So,
Wow.
uh, and it kind of made fun of the whole, B side situation because there's there are B sides that had hits
Hmm.
on albums, but it underlines what William Goldman said about Hollywood was nobody knows anything because I remember Billy Joel talked about uh, coming out of the studio and he just recorded one of the songs that would make gold and platinum forever kind of thing.
Hmm.
And he said, I don't know. I don't know. And I don't think I believe him. Right? You know, because studio execs would make decisions all the time about what crap went on the B side.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's interesting because I have heard like, sort of like the opposite case too, where something that was intended to be the B side ended up being the hit.
Hmm.
Because DJs got a hold of it, and then the A side was ended up being the less known song. Wish I could think of one off the top of my head like that, but I remember seeing that many times. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't think I ever had a single where there was nothing on the B side, but I know sometimes it would be just a repeat of the A side song, like,
Mm,
or maybe an instrumental version of it where they
right.
didn't bother to put something new there, or sometimes they weren't from albums too. Sometimes the artist had just recorded that single and didn't even have an album's worth of songs. But it was an interesting time period. I feel I don't want to say I feel bad for people now or younger music listeners because it right now is amazing with technology, but it was a lot of fun having that. If you'd buy a single, checking out what was on the B side, and like you said, a lot of times it was not that great, but it was still fun to check it out.
Well, I grew up in rural Nova Scotia. It's funny. I keep on people say, where were you from originally? Nova Scotia, but really it's Appalachia.
Oh, okay.
So uh, I think I told you about this, how when I was living in the Annapolis Valley, we had AVR, Annapolis Valley Radio.
Yes, you did tell me that. I remember that.
And so in the morning it'd be the farm reports. And then afternoon easy listening, and then we'd, finally by the time I was doing my homework in the evening, we'd get to, rock and roll and Billy Joel. Um, and there was a good radio station across from New Brunswick that we would listen to that was more rock and roll, but our choices were quite limited.
Hmm.
And but what I do remember before I got into records was people of our generation, buddy, would have a um, tape recorder, and we'd sit by the radio waiting for the song we wanted to play to death.
Oh yeah, yes, yes, and I had it where I actually had a microphone attached to the tape recorder, so I would have to hold it up to the speakers of my stereo while I was recording onto the tape recorder, and I would record stuff off a TV that way too. I remember like having this one Welcome Back Kotter episode that I recorded onto a cassette tape like that and would play it over and over again because ironically there was music in that one. That's why I recorded it, and yeah, those were good
I,
times.
I remember being a really little kid and being at somebody else's house, and their older brother had the tape recorder up against the TV. They were recording an original Star Trek episode.
Oh wow. Wow.
And,
That's pretty
and
neat.
because there was no way that you could ever see that again.
This thing will never last. It has no longevity. Well, let us move on to the next song, sir, unless you had anything else on
No, no,
Tomboy.
what you got? Hit me.
I have got, and I can't remember, this is one that we decided earlier that we both had picked, but it's Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini by Brian Hyland.
Did you watch the video, sir?
I did not. I did not.
Okay, well, he's a teen heartthrob. Looks
He,
great.
he was only 16 years old when this song was a hit.
Amazing. Yes, this is like an American Bandstand video.
Oh,
What does not hit now is Dick Clark says, you're gonna love this kid," and out he comes, and check out the real hot girl in the itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini, and it's a child.
oh, oh,
She spends
oh,
most of the time covered in a blanket, but
oh my.
videos, no, not now. We don't do that now.
No. Well, and this song came out in 1960, and I've known it since I was a little kid. I didn't come out myself until 1966, so I probably discovered this song sometime in the 70s. But I remember
I
it just
don't
being a fun little song. I probably discovered it around when I was 10 years old, when I was starting to notice girls in bikinis or women in bikinis, and thinking, because you had stuff like Charlie's Angels and stuff like that, where you would see that.
I don't think we mentioned
I
the teeny
understand
tiny.
that. But prior to this song coming out, I mean, it was still kind of bikinis were still considered to be rather risque, where you didn't even see them that much, on women at the beach. And then this song really helped, just make them so incredibly popular. The sales were really went through the roof after this song was a big hit. Then you started seeing like the beach party movies that had like Frankie and Annette, and you'd
Right,
start
right.
seeing bikinis more. Like the actress Linda Evans was in them in bikinis, and yeah, it's a fun little song. I played it the other night. It's amazing how a song like that has life to it too, because my wife was Lisa was listening to the song with me. She actually knows the song better than I do because she grew up listening to oldie stations with her parents. So she's someone that wasn't even born until the 80s, and she knew every word of this song that came out in 1960.
Well, I don't think we mentioned the artist's name is Brian Hyland.
Yes, yes, Brian Hyland. Thank you. Thank you.
And I didn't realize this. Uh, like, I think of the itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini stuff as kind of silly, but he also sang "Sealed with a Kiss," which is a great song.
Yes, yes, yes. I forgot that. I forgot that. And I know he's still around. I think he's in his 80s now. I don't know if he's
Mhm.
still performing or not, but
Well, he had with "Itsy Bitsy," that was a number one hit on the Billboard Hot 100. "Sealed with a Kiss" and "Gypsy Woman" was another one. Those both reached number three,
oh,
um, which and he continued recording into the 70s. But I guess It's like Sealed with a Kiss is such a superior song. But it's that nobody knows anything, what's going to hit, Um,
But this will be the song that he is always most remembered for, even though, and you'll see that being the case multiple times throughout our conversation today.
well, he went on to release a bunch of country influenced albums and had additional chart hits later in his career. But he is still around. He just married in 2021, so
Wow.
and his son Bodie is a drummer for his. So now he married an actress and writer and psychotherapist, um, and his former wife co-wrote songs and performed with him as a backup singer, and their percussionist, their son Bodie, was a drummer.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and his a little bit of trivia: Hyland's cousin Mabel Hyland was the wife of Larry Fine of the Three Stooges.
Get out of here. Wow.
Yep, that's
How about that? That's pretty cool.
but yeah, this is real for people who are unfamiliar with it. Think bubblegum
Yeah.
pre-Beatles, and that's how it's described.
Yeah. And it's one of those songs too. It's silly. The lyrics are very, very silly, but very, very catchy. You hear the song once and it'll probably be stuck in your head if you don't already know it. This is a fun
Oh,
song.
it's it could be a curse if you really hit it, yes.
Yeah, well, yes, that's true. But yeah, and when we played it last night, when Lisa and I did, I remember like an hour later, we were just like in the kitchen, just doing chores and putting away dishes, and we're both like singing it, because it was just stuck there. So yeah, that's what, and that was one that you picked too, Robert, or no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that
Oh,
was,
okay.
that was where we
Do you
crossed
want to take the next
the
one that
stream.
we talk about since I brought that one up?
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about the Irish Rovers was not a party because I think I was in grade seven. It was not a party. Da, 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 da. Um, and I changed my mind because there's one other that they wrote that is kind of a better novelty song, more recognizable. You hear it every Christmas. It's Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer.
Oh, okay. Now
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with "Was Not a Party." Is that what it's called? "Was Not a Party"?
Wasn't that a party?
Oh, yeah. I don't know that one, but I certainly know Grandma got run over by a reindeer,
Okay.
which I've
Yeah.
had mixed feelings about over the years.
Well, wasn't that a party? That was could have been the whiskey, could have been the gem, it could have been the gin, might have been the 4 or 5 6 packs. I don't know, but look at the mess I'm in.
Well, I don't know that, but I like it.
I think the funniest line is we got into a foot race with the cops, but but Grandma got ran over by a reindeer. It's kind of funny. Growing up in Nova Scotia, I always thought that they were a Nova Scotian band, but they're a Toronto band,
Oh, okay.
and they've had a bunch of members through the years. But they they kind of went through a country rock era, and then they kind of reverted back to their Irish Rovers branding. So I think um, that one of the Irish Rovers, and I don't know which one it was. That was my first celebrity sighting.
Oh, really?
I was in historic properties down in Halifax with my mom, and one of the Irish Rovers in a cable knit sweater because he wanted to be recognized, I think. he he was looking in the window at the clothes on offer, and my mother said, "Oh, it's an Irish Rover," and I was like, I was a child, oblivious. And she actually grabbed my head and pointed my head at the sky. Said, it's an Irish Rover.
Oh, that's funny. Now, were they pretty? I guess they must have been pretty popular, huh? That's not a group that I can say I really know, other than
Uh,
maybe this song.
in 2023, they celebrated their 60th anniversary, and their
Wow.
song, Hey Boys, Sing Us a Song, was nominated for Single of the Year in the Canadian Folk Music Awards. So
Wow.
they've represented Canada at 5 World Expos. And in 2018, were honored as one of Ireland's greatest exports at Dublin, Ireland's Epic, the Irish Emigration Museum.
That is all incredibly impressive. Wow. That's amazing.
They're really a great band. They have, I enjoy their lyrics. The one about the unicorn getting left behind,
Oh,
the
that sounds vaguely
Noah's
familiar.
Ark. Yeah, yeah, their library is worth exploring. It goes.
Wow.
It's all so much better than Grandma Got It Run Over by a Reindeer. Um, I remember I was in Halifax at an Irish pub, of which there are many in Halifax. I think it was a place called McGillicuddy's, because of course it was. And
Of course.
I was
I think there's one in every major city, right?
not a chain, just a whole bunch of guys named McGillicuddy.
Yeah.
But I remember I was in university and um, there was playing some Irish music, and the whole pub was just rocking with it. And a buddy turned to me and said, "This is why I love Canada and Ireland." So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's the grandma got run over by a reindeer. The unicorn song wasn't at a party. Those are they've got a sense of humor.
Right.
Um,
And
but
now I'm curious about Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer because you said it's the Irish Rovers, right? Is that what you said?
yeah,
Yeah. Now I want to say that I might know a different version of that. I wonder if someone else had made it a hit too. That
well,
was
at the
also.
time they called themselves the Rovers, and then they went back to being the Irish Rovers.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I just thought it was something different. So, but wow, that's amazing the longevity they've had, and I wonder if how they are with original members, if they've still got some of the originals left, or
Maybe one.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the case with most bands that are 50, 60 years old. You're not, unfortunately, not going to have probably many of them left at this point. But yeah, I want to look them up. Then that it's everything you were just telling me is pretty amazing.
No, definitely worth a listen.
I'll do that. And also worth a listen is this very popular song from 1974. I think most people would know this one. It's by a singer named Carl Douglas, and it was called Kung Fu Fighting. Do you remember Kung Fu Fighting?
I was in martial arts class, and that was our theme song.
What I discovered when I was researching this is it came from his album. I love the title of this album, Kung Fu Fighting and Other Great Love Songs. That was the name of Carl's album. Apparently this song, it's like I said, it was a big hit in 1974. It was actually one of the first really big like top 10 what were considered disco songs, which very soon were going to become very big, in the mid 70s and late 70s. So it helped popularize disco songs, and it also, like you said, was very popular with kung fu and other martial arts. You would see it used a lot in movies. I remember it even. I remember seeing some movie about Elvis from back then, some documentary that maybe came out a year or so after he died, where Elvis was into martial arts, and I remember them playing that song in the movie. I don't know if it was called "This Is Elvis." It might have been something else, but what's funny is we mentioned earlier how some artists have been around for a long time. They've done all different kinds of things creatively, artistically, and they're known for their novelty song. This was Carl Douglas's biggest song, but he was actually a singer going back to the 1960s. He sang in more of a soul R&B group called the Big Stampede, and they released multiple singles together. He's done other things since then. I have a friend, excuse me, who's very into like the music from the 60s. And he gets a little mad sometimes that Kung Fu Fighting is Carl Douglas's most famous song. But, there you go. Here it is 51 years later, and we're talking about this. And I need to mute my microphone and have a sip of water because I really am coughing bad.
I will vamp. This is it's funny. It goes back to that William Goldman thing about nobody knows anything. Uh, because I really feel like my best-selling book is This Plague of Days, and it is a fantastic epic and all that. But I've written other books that are just as good, maybe a couple that might be even better, but that's the consistent bestseller. And I wonder how this guy feels about, I did all this great stuff and people know me for kung fu fighting. You don't get to choose what you're best known for, and we're
Yeah.
known. This is what's scary about life is whatever you end up doing, you will be known for one thing. You
Yeah,
know,
it's true. Um,
It- you
I'm
don't
sorry, go
do a
ahead.
whole lot, and you end up if your obituary leads with, he enjoyed doing jigsaw puzzles, it's like, oh, Christ.
Yeah, but it's very true. And I think of a very popular entertainer who just passed away in the last few weeks, and that's David Johansen, who was the singer for, I guess, a punk band called the New York Dolls, who I'm not personally familiar with, but I know people who were into like that stuff from the late 60s, early 70s, who I guess they're viewed as one of the most groundbreaking acts of their kind at the time. And he passed away a few weeks ago, but he had a brief period where he took on another persona where he's named Buster Poindexter, and he had a song called "Feeling Hot, Hot, Hot." It was a big popular. It was that was his biggest selling song. And I saw an interview with him later where he said that song is the bane of my existence. I never want to play it again. I never want to hear it again because that was just a thing he did sort of as a one-off. Where
Oh, Mark.
he took on this fake name, the fake personality, and a whole other look, and that was his biggest seller. And that's, to a lot of people, that's what, when he died, that was the thing that they most thought of. And there's nothing wrong with that. It gave the people a lot of joy. But yeah, that's the way it works sometimes.
Yeah, it's so dangerous. It's like, I got drunk, I burned down one fire hall, and that's all anybody wants to talk about for the rest of my
You had
life.
that happen too.
We all have that story in our past.
So yeah, that is my well, that's all I pretty much have to say about Kung Fu Fighting. It's a fun song. I remember being a kid, hearing it on the radio, and I think me and my friends were doing like little, Kung Fu chops at each other while we listened to it, and just a fun tune.
Well, I think so much of that was capturing the zeitgeist of the time
Hmm.
because Bruce Lee was huge, Chuck Norris was huge.
Yeah.
It was, there was, what was the cartoon?
Oh, Hong
Uh,
Kong Phooey?
Hong Kong Phooey, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
It's
loved that.
just grabbing on to whatever we can
Yeah,
to grab grab the reins of the zeitgeist and steer it for a little bit,
yeah, exactly.
or ride his coattails.
So what do you got for us next, Robert?
Well, we're going back to The Streak by Harold
Oh,
Ray Ragsdale, born in January 24th, 1939. Here we are, spinning the platters that matter. Um, he's one of these guys who I thought he did that one thing and then died. I had no idea that he is a record producer, music arranger, television host. He's done a ton of stuff, and
yeah.
I truly underestimate him. Um, it's American country and pop singer, songwriter, and comedian. He's best known for Grammy-winning recordings. Everything is Beautiful.
Yeah, that's right. Which was not a novelty song, or it
That
was
was
just a
not, no, that was huge.
yeah.
And Misty, which
Which one?
I remember
Misty?
from Play Misty for Me
Oh
from
wow.
the uh, Clint Eastwood movie
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
where
Yeah,
where he plays, yeah, where he plays a DJ.
yeah,
And I had also forgotten he did another novelty hit besides The Streak, Guitar Zan. Do you remember
yeah. And that
Guitar?
was much earlier. I think it was in the '60s, wasn't it? Or maybe I'm thinking of something else.
You could be right. But
Okay.
he's an inductee in Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, the Georgia Music Hall of Fame, and the Christian Music Hall of Fame, and the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum.
Wow.
So
Wow.
so much more to this guy than I gave him credit for. So much more.
Yeah, what a career. What a career. And the
Oh,
streak was huge. I mean, I don't know how high it got on the charts in Canada, but I think here it was at least a top 10 hit. I may be wrong on that, but I remember hearing it on the radio all the time.
echoing through the halls of my high school were Ethel, get your clothes on. I'm
And
sorry,
for
I say that
whatever
after.
reason, streaking was a popular thing for a little while in the 70s. It was people would do it
Yeah.
as a rebellious act. Somebody even streaked on the stage of the Academy Awards one year, and
Yeah, now they just have OnlyFans and Instagram models or something. I don't know.
but yeah, the streaks. I remember having that. My family having that 45, and we would play it all the time and just laugh so hard.
Well, you know, I was looking into this guy's career in February of 2002, following the September 11th attacks. Ray Stevens released Osama Yo Mama, the album.
My goodness, are you serious?
I'm serious.
Wow.
Uh, and
Oh
that
my.
number 48 on the Hot Country Songs chart in 2001. The album reached number 29 on the U.S. Top Country Albums chart. Uh,
Wow.
in 2010, Stevens released We the People, a CD DVD of political songs,
Interesting.
and that reached top 5 on the Billboard Comedy Album chart. Digital TV in January 2014, the reality TV. Um, he co-starred in the movie Campin' Buddies in
Oh, I don't know that one.
2014. Me neither. He published his autobiographical memoir, Ray Stevens Nashville, in 2014. In 2015, began producing and hosting Ray Stevens Nashville, a 30-minute weekly music variety show on cable TV.
Oh, wow.
And since then, the show's been rebranded Ray Stevens Cabaret Nashville, and is now filmed on stage at his own cabaret showroom, which opened to the public in early 2018. Still pretty active,
It
and
sounds like it. I would guess he's into his, 80s now or so, I would think, if the streak
he,
came out in the mid 70s.
he was born in 1939.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. So, yeah.
And 2015, he released the album Here We Go Again, and that has the Taylor Swift spoof, Taylor Swift is Stalking Me, and Come to the USA.
She's known to stalk men into their 80s, I believe.
So, Ray Stevens, wherever you are, I apologize for my arrogant preconceptions about your life and career. You are,
Wow, that's all I had. I knew he had had other hit songs, and I even remember, gosh, I want to say it was the late 80s. There used to be a commercial that seemed to air every hour on TV where it was like a videotape you could buy of all of his music videos for songs like The Streak and Guitar Sand. And they just look like the silliest, like low budget videos that were just ludicrous, but it was advertised all the time back then. But the stuff was still funny. I mean, the guy actually he knows his audience. I mean, he can really tap into working humor into music, and like you said, other things that were not humorous at all.
I
Like
don't know
Everything
if
is Beautiful.
am I out of touch? Are music videos still as big as they were? I don't think they are.
I think they are in terms of maybe just well on YouTube they are. I don't think that I don't even think that MTV shows music videos anymore.
It just doesn't penetrate like it used to.
No, it doesn't. I'm kind of amazed though at some of the things that I've noticed because in the articles that I write on Medium, I do a lot. My niche on there is music. I share a lot of music videos on there, and try to keep up on some of the newer music. There's a popular singer right now, a young lady. I think she's just in her early to mid 20s, named Tate McRae, and she
Mhm.
released a music video just in the past month, and within 3 days it had well over 1 million views on YouTube I had seen. So I think there's an audience for it. I don't know if it's always that particular artist's fans following them, but yeah, I think it's just in a much different state now than we were used to when we were watching videos in the 80s and 90s. I mean, it's just, like I said, I don't
Yeah.
even know if you can turn on your TV and find music videos anymore. It's probably more stuff like YouTube and TikTok. I'm not a TikToker, I have to say.
Well, when I was clubbing, uh, there was a heavy emphasis on music videos. You'd dance, there'd be a music video playing, and then even that went away before I stopped clubbing.
Yeah, I
But
remember like the big screens up in bars and nightclubs and everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
it, that was a big deal. And not only were there music videos, but there was also, do you remember Pop-Up Video?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. That was a fun show.
That was a great show. For people who don't know, they'd show you the music video, but it had little bubbles telling you about who was cast in it, what mistakes were made, what uh, little trivia about
Yeah.
production of the music video.
Yeah, for almost every line in the song, you would see something pop up. It was a lot of fun. I think it was on VH1 or MTV or one of those popular things here in the
It
States.
was riveting. Why aren't we watching that right now? I don't understand.
I loved pop-up videos.
What you got? Your next one.
Oh, that's right, it's my turn. I have got something from one of my favorite entertainers ever, and that is Mr. Steve Martin, who is, of course, known as an actor and comedian. But in the late 1970s, he had a hit song called King Tut that was at that time. There was a big exhibit that was touring in the United States, probably in Canada, all over the world, of like remains of King Tut and all of his, priceless artifacts. And they would go on a big tour from city to city, and people would pay a lot of money to see this stuff. And Steve, in a way, cashed in on that. So he wrote the song about King Tut. It was quite funny. It was credited to Steve Martin and the Toot Uncommons, and the band actually had members of a very popular band called the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, who I believe are still around. They had a big hit in 1970s called Mr. Bojangles, but the song was the only King Tut was on Steve's comedy album, which was just him doing stand-up comedy called A Wild and Crazy Guy. But he did this one song on there. He actually premiered the song on an episode of Saturday Night Live in 1978, where he was dressed up like King Tut. The band members were dressed that way. There was one of my favorite parts of it was there was a solo from the sax player who came out of this like painted gold tomb, and he just starts wailing on the sax, and it was just very silly but very entertaining. I had the little record of that too, the 45.
You know, Steve Martin is a certified genius,
He is.
and he's one of those guys as a Renaissance man. I mean, he collects art, uh, writes books. He could have made it just as a banjo player.
Yeah,
Um,
fantastic musician.
uh, you know, mostly how I feel about the banjo is I think it sounds great if you throw it downstairs, but
Sounds really good hitting each step as it descends down the stairs.
he could have just done that and been incredibly successful.
Yeah.
And what I kind of love about him is he's that smart, but he has something that you have, buddy, and that is uh, he can be unselfconsciously goofy.
Well,
So
I thank you for that.
he's uh, he's an intelligent guy, but he's not afraid to look silly. Uh, and that is a major difference between you and I because I'm still trying to maintain my dignity.
You're cool. You've got dignity and cool down, my friend.
You can't be that cool if you care too much. So,
I have a kind of neat personal connection to Steve Martin. I don't think I've told you this. I posted about it on Facebook, so you may have seen this
your
before.
father.
No,
Release
he's not my
here.
father.
Oh, I thought
Uh,
we had a
but
granted.
several years ago, Steve, well, I guess maybe, I don't know when it was, to be honest with you. I think it was maybe around 2010 or so, but around the time everybody's getting into posting on Twitter, Steve was very, very active on Twitter, and he would post funny things on there. And I guess a couple years after that, he released a book of some of his favorite tweets that he posted on there, but also replies to his tweets in there.
Mm.
And 7 or 8 years after this book came out, a friend of mine said, "Hey, I saw your name in Steve Martin's book." Steve Martin put one of his tweets in the book, and I was one of the replies. So I am listed in Steve Martin's book where it'll say Buddy Got at twitter.com and my reply to Steve Martin in there. So there's my
And
Steve
what?
Martin collection
But what
connection.
was the tweet?
Hold that thought. Hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the cool little pause thing that I can do here, and I will share it exactly with you
Okay.
if I can remember how to work my thing here. Hold on. Okay, so we're back from that pause. I appreciate Robert putting up with me not only finding the book, but also finding the right page in the book. The book
It
that
only
Steve
took an
Martin
hour
had
and a
wrote.
half.
What's that?
It only took an hour and a half.
The book is called The 10 Make That 9 Habits of Very Organized People. Make that 10. And he's got like, he scratched out 10, he's got 9 circled. So that is Steve Martin's book. And in this, he had shared a lot of funny tweets that he had done on Twitter in the early days of Twitter. And a lot of them are just him tweeting, but then like, about 50 pages into the book, he started sharing responses that he got from some of his tweets. And this one tweet that he did, it said, "I found some great new Twitter pants. Tight red spandex with calf protectors. I'm sure the quality of tweets will improve now. I added to my Twitter outfit. Got rubberized day glow vest that fits over a nylon Twitter tee. Tweets are sure to improve. And then one of the replies is this from at Buddy Got. I have the exact same Twitter outfit. Let's not wear them at the same place at the same time, okay? So Steve Martin liked that enough to include it in his book. So I like to think, even in my diluted state, that I somehow maybe I don't know made Steve Martin smile, and he put me in his book. So that is something I think that's kind of neat as a lifelong Steve Martin fan.
My connection to celebrity is I've met several Canadian prime ministers and I hugged Kevin's director Kevin Smith once.
Really? Oh
Yeah,
wow,
that's
that's kind of neat.
it.
Does Smith have a restraining order out against you or anything now?
On advice of my lawyers, I'm not supposed to talk about
What were
that.
may I ask, what were the circumstances of that? How did you
Oh,
get that close to Kevin Smith?
I went to one of his shows. Funny, I was just talking about this on another podcast with Andrew Butters. Um, I went to one of his shows and I found his message there for his one man show very inspiring. It was 2010, right before I started releasing books with my publishing company. And then a year or two later, must have been the next year, he came to Toronto and I said, I showed him the first book I wrote, the first anthology, and I said, in part thanks to you, I'm doing it. I'm doing what I've been thinking about doing for a long time. And so he promoted the book on his podcast, and he
Wow. Wow.
brought me up on stage, and we chatted a little bit, and got a hug, gave a hug.
That's
Really
pretty awesome.
sweet
That's
guy,
so cool.
very sweet guy. He was very kind to me.
Wow, that's great. That's so cool that he mentioned your book on the podcast too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was great.
I don't know if you have if this airs in Canada or not, but are you familiar with a it's a current game show slash competition show. It airs on Fox here called The Floor that Rob Lowe hosts.
No, I don't know that one.
It's pretty good. It's only in its second or third season right now, but basically it starts off with 100 contestants like over this really huge floor, and each person is an expert in a certain some sort of they have something that they're an expert in. Like you might have like Canadian music, and someone might challenge you, and you go up against each other. You have to answer questions for 2 minutes, and whoever answers the most moves on to the next round, et cetera, et cetera. You can win, I think, like $250,000. But among the 100 people on this current season is Brian O'Halloran, who played Dante in Clerks, the first
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah.
Clerks movies. And it
Right.
was funny because his specialty was convenience store items. And he's actually doing very right now. The season is still ongoing. He is people get eliminated if they lose one of these face to face rounds, they leave. But he's actually defended his things multiple times, and he's won a lot of money on this show so far, which is kind of nice because even though he's in this legendary movie Clerks, and I guess like at least one sequel, maybe two,
Mhm. Yeah.
that was such a cheaply made movie at the time. It's not like he got paid millions of dollars to star in Clerks. He's still, he said at one point during the show, he goes, a lot of people think if you're an actor that you're just really rich. He goes, but still, I'm married, I have children, I have a mortgage, and I'm not on a hit TV show. Or he wasn't like complaining about his life. He was very, very grateful for the life he has. But I'm happy to see him make money on this show because, it's not easy for anybody, especially when your biggest film you did was over 30 years ago. And it was something that I think they made for, I forget how much they made the first Clerks movie for, but it wasn't a lot.
No, it was all on credit cards.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a brilliant movie.
It is. And I guess, yeah, people do have that misconception, 'cause especially when you're on stage with Rob Lowe and thinking,
Yeah.
I could have his career.
Guy's doing all right. And poor, cursed with such horrible looks too.
Oh, hideous. Poor bastard.
So, well, okay, well, let's move on past King Tut and Steve Martin now. And thank you again for, letting me talk about the book. And that's so cool. You met Kevin Smith and you hugged him. What song you got for me, for
Well,
everybody?
I want to emphasize that he hugged me back at the time. Um, I have probably my most hated song on this list, but it is Um, it's a if you hear it, it's a curse because this is people who listen to this song, listen to this podcast. Please do not listen to Disco Duck, performed by Rick Dees and his cast of
Is
idiots.
Cast of Idiots.
Yeah, is a satirical disco novelty song with a kind of a Donald Duck-esque interlude in there. Yeah. And to humanity's great shame, it became a number one hit on the Billboard Hot 100 for 1 week in October 1976. Ranked at 97 of the 100 most popular songs of the year, according to Billboard magazine. Surely a sign that we shall join hands and walk into the sea. Uh, this, this is humanity's nadir.
I was one of the people that had that record back then. I had the
Um,
little 45 again. I can distinctly remember it was on the RSO label, which was the same label that did the Bee Gees and other things like that.
and how will you atone for your sin?
Well, I've added to my sins just recently because it was just about 3 months ago. I was talking about music with my wife, who, as I mentioned earlier, is a little bit younger than me. She was not around when Disco Duck first came out, and
Mhm.
we were talking about music, and I'm
It was
like,
a
"Oh
better
yeah, it's
time.
like it's." What'd you say?
It was a better time.
But I brought up the song, and she'd never heard of it. So she had never heard of Disco Duck until about 3 months ago, and I played it for her, and she's like, "Oh my god, this is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life." And then like an hour later, she was doing something, and she goes, "Damn it, buddy, I got Disco Duck in my head."
You say, I played it for her, but what you mean is you did that to her.
I did that to her. So now, she will always have memories of Disco Duck in her head. I don't hate it. I think it's a fun song. It's silly as heck, but it was, we were both, well, you and I are very close in age. If it came out in 76, I was just 9 or 10 years old. So, yeah, as a 9 or 10 year old, I just loved it like
Yes,
crazy.
before you develop taste, you might be forgiven in some quarters, not by me, but other people. Weaker people would forgive you. Um, yeah, I have evidence that they knew it was an awful song because apparently, according to Dees, it took 1 day to write the song, but 3 months to convince anyone to perform it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, he had the last laugh there, didn't he? I mean, he made a fortune off of that, and I know. I guess at that time he was already a popular DJ, or I know that's his main thing is that he's known for being a DJ. Remember, he later went on to be a host of Solid Gold, the popular TV show.
That may be where he made his money. I don't think he made a lot of money off of out of Disco Duck, and I'll tell you why. His agent, they were going to put it on Saturday Night Fever,
Oh, okay.
one of the biggest albums of all time,
Mm-hmm.
and his agent was afraid that if it appeared in because it makes an appearance in Saturday Night Fever, the movie, in a
Okay.
dance club scene in which a group of students are learning to dance disco style. It is also featured in the deleted scene to the PG rated version.
Oh, okay.
He could have made much more money, but his I guess it was his manager decided to deny the song on the film's soundtrack album
Oh,
because he was afraid that it would compete with the sales of Dee's own record.
oh, what a mistake that was.
Yes. And Saturday Night Fever went on to sell over 40 million copies worldwide and is the second
Wow.
best soundtrack of all time. Second best selling soundtrack of all time.
Oh, Dees must have just wanted to strangle his manager after that. Like you said, that album was so popular. I remember this. I hadn't thought about this in years, but I remember learning years after the fact that John Travolta had, I guess, agreed to have his a photo of him from the movie on the front of the album. It's one where he's wearing the very famous white suit. Yes, it's iconic, but he wanted a small cut of every sale of the album that was released. And that was one of the biggest money making things for him as a young actor back then. I think he said in this interview that that's a big part of what paid for his airplane when he bought his first airplane. Was just so Dee's probably thought, oh, I could have been on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. And he wrote the song too, so he would have made out well.
Well, when people have asked me what was your first album, because I had quite a album collection. My son has got hold of my old turntable, and for some reason, he's 22, and kids of his generation love turntables and albums. They find it kitschy or something. But he went through my album collection, and I my his perception of how cool I was went up, 4 or 5%. Uh, Science, And if people ask, what was your first album, Rob? The truth is, my first album was Saturday Night Fever.
Wow. Wow.
Uh, but that's not what I tell them when I say what my first album was.
What do you say it was?
Um, uh, it's Super Trooper.
Oh, okay. ABBA. Yeah.
No, actually, oh, that's going to bug me. It's not Super. No, something
Which were cool.
much more cool. Um, right, right. You're bloody well right. You got a bloody right to say.
Oh,
Right,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
got a
Yeah,
bloody
you know
right.
what? I think Super Tramp.
Super Tramp. Thank you.
Super Tramp. Yes, yes, yeah.
That's what I claim as my first album.
Well, maybe that was your first studio album, and Saturday Night Fever was your first soundtrack album. Maybe that.
See, trying to cling to shreds of dignity just made me a liar. Um,
But how iconic, that Saturday Night Fever album, and I guess in a different kind of iconic way, Disco Duck.
somebody else who lost a lot of money up front, they made it long term. But Bobby McFerrin, when he came out with "Don't Worry, Be Happy,"
Oh yeah.
they didn't print many because they didn't think it would be a best-selling album.
Wow.
And the video came out with Robin Williams, and everybody was singing "Don't Worry, Be Happy,"
It was so
and
so
stores
popular.
didn't have it because they didn't print enough
Oh
initially.
wow.
So when it hit, they were, somebody was, beating a donkey in the back of a factory somewhere, going faster, faster, turn the wheel, make those albums.
And now
You never
there's
said
another
that.
artist too who has done many, many things like before that song and since then, but that is the song inevitably he will always be, most known for.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's very typical of the kinds of stuff he normally does, from what I recall.
No, I
But
don't
well,
think so. It's definitely it's the curse of what are you best known for? What's going to go on your tombstone? What's the first thing in your obituary? What will people remember you for? And it it'll be the time I burn down a fire hall. It's no matter how many books I write. Oh yes, and that jewel heist in Monte Carlo. What's your next song, buddy?
Okay, well, the next song that I'm going to share here is that we actually talked about this before we started hitting record because you didn't know this one. Maybe it's more of a popular thing in America. It's the song Fish Heads by Barnes and Barnes. It came out in 1978. However, I think I would not be too off the money here to suggest that most people didn't learn of it until much later. Like, for example, when I did in the early 1980s, when the music video for the song was in heavy rotation on the then new MTV. They had, at that point, they didn't even have enough music videos to fill up the whole day. They had a period, I remember, like towards the beginning, where they would air just like a spaceman floating for like 5 minutes every hour because they didn't have enough music videos. So when the ones they did have, they played the heck out of. And I remember they played Fish Heads all the time. It was so very silly. It was about this guy basically carrying his beloved fish head around with him while he's doing different things like getting cappuccino, going to the movies. Just so very silly. And it was never a big hit like in terms of radio play until it became famous on the Dr. Demento show. Robert mentioned Dr. Demento earlier. It was a popular syndicated show. I think it started in the late 70s, went well into the 80s, maybe even longer. I know Dr. Demento has since passed, but he played a lot of novelty songs on there, funny songs. It was very popular on there, featured heavily on there. And the
Was
music video, it
he was
starred and was directed by actor Bill Paxton, who of course went on to a very long career in movies, wonderful things like Weird Science, Apollo 13, Twisters, Twister, not Twisters, but he unfortunately passed a few years back. But very, very funny music video. The lyrics to the song are ridiculous. It starts out fish heads, roly poly fish heads, eat them up, yum. And he just goes on to sing about how these things that fish heads can't do. They can't play baseball. They don't wear sweaters. They're not good dancers. They don't play drums. It's like lyrics like that where it's just so incredibly silly. You have to listen to the song, Robert, and you also need to watch the music video. It's a very entertaining, ridiculous music video.
I feel doubly cursed here. First, because I don't have a favorite fish head. And secondly, listening to those lyrics, I got to tell you, I have spent years writing very um, in-depth, twisty literature, suspense, crime thrillers, and apocalyptic epics. Obviously, listening to those lyrics, I feel like I've been trying too hard.
Maybe you have. Well, I mean, have you had a good fish head in any of your post-apocalyptic stories?
Not one, and maybe that was the dimension that kept me
A
from.
plague of fish heads. Just something to think about. But yeah,
Wow.
it's just, I mean, some of the lines in it, I could just go on and on. Um, Roly-poly fish heads are never seen drinking cappuccino in Italian restaurants with Oriental women. Ask a fish head anything you want to. They won't answer. They can't talk. It's just these great, great lyrics. By the way, I said it was by Barnes and Barnes. There was not an actual Barnes within the group. It was a duo featuring an actor named Billy Mooney, who is probably best known for being one of the regulars on the original Lost in Space TV series. He was a very famous child actor. And then his co-partner in Barnes and Barnes was a guy named Robert Hamer, who unfortunately has since passed. But yeah, definitely, if you folks don't know it, check out at least the music video when you get a chance. I know it's on YouTube.
Perhaps my fiction doesn't have enough truth because I aim for verisimilitude and to get to the heart of the human condition, but it's true that I have never explained that fish do not drink cappuccinos. I feel like such a fool.
Well, let me clarify too. I don't think this was ever a big moneymaker for these guys. It's got a cult following. So what song you
Is
got for me?
one,
Anything with fish
but
heads or
buddy,
anything like that?
buddy, are you the cult? You're the cult of one?
I might be. I might be.
Because to be honest, I've never heard of that one, but and I'm afraid to click on that video, so I'm going to go right on with my favorite one on the list.
Oh, okay.
Hello, Mata. Hello,
Ah!
Papa. Here I am in Camp Granada. This was released in 1963, and it was still on the radio and I'm not that old, but it still came up when summer rolled around on old time radio, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a novelty song recorded by Alan Sherman in 1963, and the melody is taken from the ballet Dance of the Hours from the opera La Gioconda.
Oh,
Amicare Panchielli. And I cannot
good.
guarantee that I said that correctly.
It
But
sounded
the
good to me.
lyrics were written by Alan Sherman and Lou Bush. So he based the lyrics on letters of complaint which he received from his son, Robert Sherman, who was
Oh,
attending Camp Champlain, a summer camp in Westport, New York. So in 2020, the song was selected by the Library of Congress. 2020, this is, pretty recent, for preservation in the United States National Recording Registry,
wow.
culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant.
Wow, how about that?
Oh, but there's more. Here's trivia. We're spinning the platters that matter. This, my friends, is the podcast that never ends. Um, the song, the song's mention of Leonard Skinner is the boy at camp who got ptomaine poisoning last night for dinner. That was the
Leonard
inspiration.
Skinner.
That was the inspiration for the name of the band Leonard Skinner. Although the
Wow.
band's name was also inspired by a physical education instructor of the same name.
Okay, I knew that part. I didn't know that about the song. You know when I first heard the song in its entirety?
Huh?
About 3 hours ago.
Seriously?
Yeah, I knew the chorus, the very popular Hello Mata, Hello
Okay.
Fata, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never heard the whole song until I knew you were going to be talking about it today, so I thought I would listen to it. And it's quite funny. It's got a lot of great lines in there, but I heard the Leonard Skinner and I'm just like, oh, maybe that was another source of inspiration for the band. And, well, and you just clarified that
For those
or confirmed
uninitiated,
that.
hello, Mama. Hello, Fada. Here I am at Camp Granada. Camp is very entertaining, and they say we'll have some fun if it stops raining. And at the end, the sun comes out, the rain stops, and he tells his parents to kindly disregard this letter. So the song scored number two on the Billboard Hot 100 list for 3 weeks, beginning of August 24th, 1963.
Wow.
And it was kept from number one by both Fingertips by Little Stevie Wonder
Little Stevie Wonder.
and My Boyfriend's Back by the Angels.
Oh, wow. How about that?
The song
Yeah,
hit number
and
one in Hong Kong.
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
The song hit number one in Hong Kong, where there are no summer camps in existence, according to Alan Sherman in his book. Wow.
Wow. I think that's wonderful that it was inspired by actual letters from his son, too. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, there's there's a bit more to this, which is kind of funny. Um, I have to find it here in my notes. Um, da.
If I
Oh,
was his son, I would have like milked that and been like years later, hey, can I have the keys to the car? I paid for that car, Dad.
did you know there's an updated version? It's Sherman wrote a new one called Back at Camp Granada version.
Oh,
It was Hello Mata, Hello Fata 64,
oh, how about
May
that?
27th, 1964. And it was performed on the Johnny Carson show, Tonight Show. Um,
Wow.
and Sherman began that version by giving a camp whistle, followed by his spelling Granada's name, and then sticks out his tongue. And in that version, narrator is back at camp, recovering from his compound fracture, where some things like the food have improved. Um, because little black things in it are not moving. Because no one knows where his trunk is, and his bunk is where the skunk is. Um, but the detail that made me smile, um, is that Lenny Bruce was scheduled to entertain at the camp.
Oh, oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Wow.
And
Yeah,
another one who couldn't
1964.
hear
That would have been
everything.
probably the height of Lenny Bruce's career then, too, or somewhere around there.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I
Oh, that's
just
great.
it reached number 18 in Canada because we have taste. Yeah,
Yeah, really? Because you didn't know fish heads, Robert.
uh, yeah, you blew my cover. I did know Pichettes.
But wow, and thank you for bringing that song into my life. Like I said, I knew the chorus. I think I maybe used to see it again, going back to like a TV commercial for like great fun songs, and you would hear like the chorus played. But yeah, it's got a lot of funny lines in it, and very very clever. I could see why it was as popular as it was.
Oh, great lyrics, a lot of fun. That is undoubtedly edges out. Um, that's got to be my most favorite on the list just because it's so funny.
Yeah.
Uh, but there's another on the list that I'll hold back. That'll be my second favorite. What you got?
Okay. Well, what I got next is I don't know if it was necessarily intended to be a novelty song, but it's it's a very funny song. It's called "I'm Too Sexy." It's
Uh,
by the group Right Said Fred. Came out in 1991. Most people would probably know this song. I think it still gets played a lot on oldies, especially like 90s stations. Very catchy song you could dance to. Had a popular music video at the time where it has like lines like I'm too sexy for my car, it's too sexy for my car, so sexy, whatever. But very very funny, and one of the most famous lines in it actually comes from well, was sort of where they got the idea for the song from. This band was a trio, and it two-thirds of the trio was brothers named Fred and Richard Fairbrass, and in the, I guess it was early 90s, or maybe it was the late 80s at that point. They were running a gym together in London. And according to one of the brothers, Richard, he said that in this gym there was a lot of narcissism and posing going on. And one day, just being kind of a smartass, he took his shirt off and started singing "I'm Too Sexy for My Shirt"
Mm.
in front of a mirror, just as a joke. And then they like, hey, let's turn this into a real song. And then they recorded it, I guess first as an indie song, and then it got on a major label, and it became this huge worldwide popular song that they're best known for, and just a funny, entertaining song. It's silly, but it's fully intended to be silly, and I still get a kick out of it over 30 years later.
What year was that released?
That was 91. Yeah, by Right Said Fred.
Yeah, I remember this one well, and I'll tell you why. I
You were
have,
too sexy for your shirt, I'm sure.
well, I still am, but the the this is funny. I was working for a couple of people. I was working for bad people, buddy. Uh, these are the
Mafia,
people
right?
I no, I was selling books to bookstores, and long story short, they still owe me $5,000 plus interest from
Ah, jerks.
1991. But I remember the boss's wife came dancing into the warehouse one time. Yeah, she was singing "I'm Too Sexy for My Shirt," and she said, "What are you too sexy for?" And I said, "You."
Bravo, sir. That's fantastic. I love that.
You wouldn't know it, but I'm a really sweet guy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, that was my number six song for the big show today. What you got?
My second favorite, I think. Um, this is a tight race between a couple Weird Al Yankovic songs, but I'm going to give it to White and Nerdy, uh,
Ah,
and really just for the video because Donny Osmond dancing in the background is hilarious
I
and
forgot about that. Oh yeah.
how could you forget about that? That makes the music video. It's a very fun song by Weird Al, who we've both seen in concert, by the way. So
Yes, we have. We talked about that beforehand.
I yeah, maybe dignity isn't my thing, but anyway,
Al Yankovic was great when I saw him in concert. I saw him like four or five times.
I
Most
saw him.
all but one of those he opened for the Monkees, which was just
Oh,
great.
well, I saw him in Edmonton. He was his own act. I don't remember that there was an opener. Um, but he puts on an amazing show. Everybody in the hall knew every word of his songs. Most of the stuff was covers, but there were a couple of his originals. And I was amazed at how this guy could dance around on stage. It was like 2.5 hours, a quick uh, wardrobe changes, dancing with one foot behind his ear. Um, just incredible energy, incredible range. What he and his band don't get credit for is they play all kinds of music,
Yes,
and they're great musicians to be able to emulate other great musicians. They're
yeah,
incredibly versatile.
they really
But
are. You figure you're doing like a Nirvana spoof for
yeah,
one moment, then Madonna, and
exactly. And no, he's incredibly talented, incredibly smart guy. I uh, did a deep dive on his bio at one point, and he's another genius kind of
he
guy.
is.
He ended up in music, but he could have gone into advanced mathematics. So,
Oh, I didn't know that.
oh yeah, he's a brainiac. Um, but they called him weird in college, and it stuck. Uh, but I think, if I recall correctly, he wanted a guitar or something, but his family was concerned that his parents were very conservative and very overprotective and worried that they would lead him down the wrong path, so they gave him an accordion. And, um, I think when he went off to college, they actually followed him there. Like,
Oh,
you know,
really?
yeah, they were very protective people. But one detail about the white and nerdy video, and for anybody who hasn't seen it, they really must.
Yeah, I want to
Donnie,
watch it again now.
Donnie Osmond's dancing in the back behind Al as he sings. Uh, Al said he chose Donnie because he's the whitest guy I could think of.
That's great. And damn it, Donnie did a good job there.
He did a great job.
Yeah.
Very, he obviously has a sense of humor about
Yeah.
himself. He knew what he was doing.
He did. He
He
did.
was up- but Weird Al put it together. But Seth Green shows up as well
Oh yeah.
with his collection of figurines. And Keegan Michael Key and it also shows up as well as Jordan Peele. Uh, and who else was there? I wasn't so familiar with the other with Chameleon Air, but he was responsible for some of these as well. So
What year
uh,
was that one, Robert?
that was dun, 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 dun. That is a secret.
What's funny is I'm looking at the next song on my list, and it's the only one I didn't write down a year for. Don't
Well,
worry.
we'll have to give our listeners a little bit of homework.
There we go. There we go.
Is your next one Amish Paradise?
No, no, but
Okay.
that well, why don't I go to that one since we're talking
Okay.
about Weird Al?
Yes.
Yeah, we both talked about you had that on your list as well, and that is a parody of Coolio's Gangsta's Paradise. I have to say, I know Al's version much better than I know Coolio's version. But you might find this hard to believe. I'm not the biggest Coolio fan in the world. I have nothing against the man or I don't know any of his loved ones or anything like that, but I just don't know the song that well.
Rest in
Um,
power, Korea.
but yeah, Amish Paradise is the Amish version of Gangsta's Paradise, and it's got so many great lines in there. I actually printed out the entire lyrics. Just cover a couple of them. But it's just it starts out as I walk through the valley where I harvest my grain. I take a look at my wife and realize she's very plain, but that's just perfect for an Amish like me. You know, I shun fancy things like electricity, and it goes on and on like that. He talks about getting up at 4:30 in the morning, milking cows with Jebediah feeding chickens, Jacob plowing.
Cool.
And one thing I always get a kick out of. Got a Bible in my hand and a beard on my chin. But if I finish all of my chores and you finish thine, then tonight we're going to party like it's 1699. And he had a fun music video for this too that I haven't seen in many, many years, but it just played up everything the way Al always does in his videos. He makes brilliant music videos, and it's such a funny song.
It is truly greatness.
It
And
is. It's one of my top favorites by him.
if only the Amish could see it. Um, funny detail about this is Weird Al always asks permission from the original artist,
Hmm.
and uh, he got permission from somebody at the record label, and Coolio said later he did not give his blessing, and
Oh,
he said he was offended by the song.
really? I didn't know
Then
that.
a 2014 interview, he changed his mind and he said refusing the parody would have been stupid, and he wished somebody in his management would have stopped him because he later said he thought it was funny.
Oh, that's
Um,
nice.
but what people should do is watch the original and then watch the parody because there are some interesting parallels
Oh, is that right? Yeah, I
between the
know. I
Frank
was actually
Sinatra and Florence
I wasn't
Henderson.
trying to diss the original at all. I mean, I remember actually liking it when it was new. It's just not one that I ever owned a copy of or anything like that. But I remember the video being very very popular at the time for Gangsta's
Mhm.
Paradise, and I want to watch them now back to back. That'd be fun.
They're definitely worth watching back to back because you'll get more of the nuance and the jokes when you see them side by side. Um, there's another funny detail about Weird Al's oeuvre. I really think he's underestimated as an artist. But um, the bit about asking for permission.
Hmm.
So for he had an idea for a song based on the Bond movie theme um, from Sir Paul,
Oh,
uh,
Live and Let Die.
Live and Let Die. Live and Let Die.
Excellent song. Yeah.
Great, great song.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Da-da-da, da-da.
Great song. Well, Weird Al's version was chicken pot pie.
That's fantastic. Oh,
It
I've never
would have
heard
been,
that.
it would have been, but you'll
Oh,
hear it because he asked permission from Paul and his wife at the time, Linda, and they were both vegetarian or vegan. I forget which.
oh, yeah.
They said that'll increase the sales of chicken pot pie. So no.
Oh,
And okay.
yeah. They were very, very firmly into that. I remember that. So I can see that. I can see their reasoning there. I would have loved hearing that though.
Well, it just goes to it points to the fact that people are I don't want to say people are sheep, but when when you think that a song could popularize a meal, bah, bah.
And I'm sorry, Paul and Linda. People were still buying chicken pot pies back then, regardless. I know I was.
Amazing.
So, why don't we move on to? Oh, well, I want to ask you this. Because I'm curious about it. We were talking about Weird Al. I haven't seen it, but did you see the movie that came out a year or so ago about his life that starred the young man who played Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe?
I
Apparently,
did.
he played Weird. Yeah, you did see it.
Yeah.
Isn't
It's
it sort of like a spoof in some ways, or is it? It's
it's
called
not out
Weird,
of
isn't it?
yeah, it's not autobiographical. It is funny. It is a spoof. And it's
Worth.
worth watching.
Yeah, I
I
want to check it out. When I heard that he was playing him, I'm like, oh, I gotta see that.
well, it he played it as if uh Weird Al is amazingly vanilla. He's a family man. He rejects the whole rock star, lifestyle. There's no stories of how Weird Al and his band trashed hotel rooms, across.
No, no. Can't think of any bad Weird Al stories.
Yeah, and in Daniel Radcliffe's version, Madonna is a lover, and it it just it's not Weird Al's life.
Oh, I want to see this. It sounds ridiculous.
It's fairly ridiculous. And he's just so conservative and straight-laced. It couldn't be farther from the real Weird Al.
Well, on that note, what do you got next for me?
I have something that my kids turned me on to, Afro Man. His real name is Joseph Edgar Foreman, born in 1974 in Los Angeles, Shaky Town. And he wrote Because I Got High.
Oh, yes. I forgot about this song.
How could you forget about this song? It's like all the things I was going to clean my room, but I got high. I was going to all the things he was going to do. He was going to be a great man, a great accomplished man, but he got high. And
Oh yeah, I don't think I knew when. Do you know when that one came? Was that in the '90s or a little later, probably? Huh.
that wasn't that long ago.
Oh, okay, probably not. I didn't know of it until about 10 years ago, and that was when a writer friend, I think you might know her too, Melissa Lummis. I think she's the first one that told me about it. I think she might have shared it online, and I was like, "Oh man, that song's pretty funny."
2014 is when it came.
2014. Okay, so it was probably right around the time it was new that I learned about it from Melissa.
Well, he apparently released it in order to highlight the usefulness of cannabis as part of the effort to legalize its sale across the United States. I don't think that's what that song conveys. Uh, I think it
I wonder if
reinforces
it helped though, because it wasn't long after that started becoming
it
legal everywhere.
it reinforces a lot of stereotypes about cannabis. But what I found interesting was where else it showed up. So, um, oh, that was the 2014 was a new version. There was the original, I guess, was in 2000.
Oh, okay.
So, T-Bone's Records released it. It was distributed primarily through local concerts and and the file sharing service Napster.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
then its title track was played on The Howard Stern Show. So, in late 2001, the song became a hit and was featured in the 2000s films Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back with
Oh, there you go. I can see
my
that.
buddy again, um, The Perfect Score, and Disturbia.
Oh, wow. Wow.
We call this a novelty song, but Because I Got High was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Rap Solo Performance in 2002.
Oh, how about that? How about
Yeah.
that? It's funny how like some novelty songs or just funny songs in general still can be like you said earlier. A lot of like talent goes into them. A lot of work goes into them. Where they deserve sometimes awards for their creativity and artistic pluses.
Well, Afro Man, this guy, I have to say that I find him to be Joseph Edgar Foreman is must be a smart and interesting guy because aside from his um, prolific output as a musician, did you know that in the 2024 presidential election, he announced his candidacy?
I did not know that.
In,
I had no idea. Wow.
On December 20th, 2022, Afroman announced his candidacy in the 2024 presidential election. His campaign manager, Jason Savage, announced his candidacy on his behalf, citing inflation, the housing market, law enforcement, corruption, and legalizing marijuana as key issues of his campaign.
And he didn't win.
He did not, but he is one deep guy.
I know nothing about him. I think I've heard that song maybe three times. I remember being entertained by it, but wow, that's all very, very interesting. Has he done much else music wise? I mean, I didn't know if you were being totally facetious there, or he probably has been active.
No, he's produced a lot. It's what I find interesting was his first thing that he did was as a student in middle school. He his first song was Harry Carey. It was written during his time in middle school as a diss song. It was about a student known for her cruel harassment of fellow students concerning their appearances.
Oh wow, wow. Okay, that's
And he
kind of
got
deep for a kid of that age.
yeah, well, and he got kicked out of school for um, his first tape he made was about his eighth grade teacher. She got me kicked out of school for sagging my pants, which is a big deal back then.
No.
But I wrote the song about her and it sold 400 copies. It was selling to teachers, students, just about everybody. I realized that even though I wasn't at school, my song was at school. So in a way, I was still there. All these people would come to my house just to give me comments about how cool they thought the song was. Foreman was also performed in his church at a young age, playing both the drums and guitar.
Wow.
So his first album was Philosophy, which is
Velocity.
yeah, Philosophy, which was
I
considered
love
pop,
that.
but he released Sell Your Dope and he moved to Mississippi where he met a drummer. He's produced a lot of stuff
A lot of
besides.
impressive information there. Wow. That's pretty cool.
An interesting guy. He's had some run-ins with the law, but it seems like the law was the problem, not him. So
Wow. Wow. Well, that's pretty interesting. I want to hear that song again. Now, I haven't heard it in at least 10 years, so
it's fun.
it is fun. Okay, well, speaking of fun, the
Hmm.
next one on my list is probably the most popular song, at least on, I don't know, by different ages and such, by Frank Zappa. And it came out in the 80s. It's called Valley Girl. Do you remember
No,
Valley Girl?
I
It was Frank Zappa. It was credited to him, but the singer on this was actually his daughter, who was only 14 at the time, Moon Unit Zappa. It was supposed to be a mocking satire of the San Fernando Valley in California teen culture, but it was so it's successful that it actually popularized the whole Valley Girl persona. There was even a movie made called Valley Girl. I think Sarah Jessica Parker maybe was in that. I can't remember, but it was all for sure, that whole Valley Girl thing, and
oh my God.
yeah, like oh my god, and it was on the radio all the time. It was actually I remember, and it led to kind of a successful career for a little while for Moon Unit, where she went on to become like a frequent guest VJ on MTV. She got into acting for a while. I think she's pretty much left showbiz now, but she for a while there she was, she was able to really cash in on the success of Valley Girl, and very very silly. Like I said, it played up all "gag me with a spoon," those popular phrases that were known in the '80s for that
Vocal
whole
fry.
scene, and I remember. I live in Delaware. I'm about a half hour away from Philadelphia, and that's a big, big city for music. And there used to be a popular DJ there on a station called WCAU. His name was Terry Young. At that time in the 80s, he was the biggest DJ in Philadelphia. And he loved this song. And he did this thing one time. It was some sort of protest against the station where he locked himself in the studio and he played the song 10 times in a row. He ended up getting like suspended from the station, but he was just like I remember listening to this and thinking this guy's just nuts. That was his persona. He was the nutty DJ guy. But the song was a big big sensation at the time. I loved it. I still love it. I don't know much by Frank Zappa. Actually, this a lot of, I know by Frank Zappa. I think it's a little too weird for me, but this song I thoroughly enjoyed.
It does make me wonder about. I was fascinated by how stories end. Like I have a more of a fascination with watching old black and white movies and then looking up how everybody died. And when you have a name like Moon Unit, like when you step out of the limelight, what's next? Do you become a real estate agent like Moon Unit Zappa is I'm going to sell your three-bedroom condo? I don't know. I think with
And she
a
has a
name like
brother named
that,
Dweezil. Now I know he's still involved in music, but yeah, you're right. I mean, that's got to be weird because now
yeah,
I would assume she's probably in her late 40s or probably in her early 50s.
is
Going to
she a
PTA
dentist?
meetings. Hi, I'm Moon Unit.
I just think that with names like that, you have to be in the entertainment business or nothing. And,
Yeah, I think you're right.
it is, I was thinking about this. This goes back to our previous conversation about, what happened to people. Like, do they just have a one hit and then eventually buy an island like Corey Hart did? I was thinking this about the Northern Pikes. They did a kind of a novelty song years ago um, called She Ain't Pretty. And in brackets, she just looks that way.
Oh, I don't
Great
think I
video.
know that.
Oh, She Ain't Pretty, She Just Looks That Way is a great song. And the Northern Pikes, I just looked this up today. Is I thought, that's the only song that's their one hit wonder. I don't know what else they've done. And, what do you do after that? Do you become a studio musician? Do you
Hmm.
go into real estate? I always figure that, when all else fails, people go into real estate. And and
That happens a lot.
well, just before She Ain't Pretty broke, they were touring bars in Northern Ontario and going, we got to break up. We can't break in. It's, this is we're on the road constantly. We're not making any money. This is just a bad gig. We got to break up. And then it hit. And I checked, they're still touring in
Wow,
2025.
how about that?
So do look up She Ain't Pretty. She Just Looks That Way by the Northern Pikes.
I'll do
That's
that. I'll do
your
that.
homework assignment for today, sir.
And I love when I see that bands can still do that decades later,
Mhm.
that where they maybe just had one or two successful songs. And what's neat is that a lot of times they get lumped together in packages, like, here's like this five big bands from the 80s or from the 90s or et cetera. And they have cruises with like, acts like that. And, they can just keep going with their careers. I think it's pretty neat.
And just play that damn song to death.
Exactly, exactly. Well, that's pretty neat. And I think it's your turn, right? Because I just did Valley Girl. Yeah.
Always look on the bright side of life.
Oh, the Great Monty Python.
Eric Idle. I just rewatched that movie for The Life of Brian. I just watched it a couple weeks ago, and I hadn't seen it in, you know, 40 years, whatever. Um, but what I found fascinating about that movie was that how many religious groups protested it. They said
I
it was
can I can see
blasphemy.
that happening back then in the 70s.
Oh, there's a great Um, you can find it on YouTube. It's I think it's John Cleese, might be Eric Idle, on a British talk show with like the Archbishop of Canterbury or something, and or some bishop, and he's complaining about what a terrible blasphemy this movie is, and John Cleese is looking surprisingly patient as he tries to explain. No, you see the actual Jesus briefly, but it is a satire, and lighten up.
It was
But
probably hard for him to bite his tongue like that.
well, yeah, I think he can be quite acerbic when he wants to
Hmm.
be. He was very patient trying to get across that he wasn't the devil. But that song, when you have a bunch of people on a hill getting crucified, how are you going to end that movie with a happy little song?
Don't
When you
always
look
look on
at
the bright
it,
side of life.
yeah, when you look at it, life's a piece of shit. And
Life's a
you go
laugh
out
and
on
death's a joke. It's true.
you go out on a pretty happy note.
And that's like you said, from Life of Brian. I've only seen that once. I'm not the biggest I like Python, but I haven't seen their movies all that much. But I actually know that song primarily from going back to another Philadelphia radio station. There was a popular DJ just recently retired in Philadelphia named John DeBella. A lot of people might know about him because he was when Howard Stern became a big sensation. I think it was in the late '80s, early '90s. One of his big things was he had started in New York, Stern did. Then he moved into the Philadelphia market, and his chief competition there at the time was John DeBella, because John DeBella ran the most popular radio station. It was called the Morning Zoo. He played a bunch of like novelty stuff, but he played rock too. But the whole show was filled with humor, jokes, and so and so. But DeBella well, it became very, it was a big famous rivalry. Stern even wrote about it in his book, blah, 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 blah. But DeBella always ended his shows with always look on the bright side of life. So I knew it from that. He did it back in the '80s. He switched stations a few times throughout the years, but he still always ended his show every day with always look on the bright side of life. So that's how I know it. That's probably how a lot of people in the area where I live know it too, because this guy, he was, like I said, one of the most popular DJs for 30, 40 years. And it's such a fun song. My goodness, the whistling in there and the lines like you quoted and I quoted. Yeah, I mean, Python, like I said, I might not be that into the movies, but their music, their TV series, so clever, so witty.
I think what's funny to me is the how sensibilities change and some don't. So, Life of Brian is still known as a controversial film. It was deemed blasphemous by leading Catholic and other Christian groups. It was released in 1979. But when I looked up Life of Brian, one of the search questions that come up is it okay for Catholics to watch the Life of Brian? And and I
Wow.
thought, yes, there's a couple quick scenes of full frontal nudity and maybe, but they weren't upset about that. They're upset that it mocked Jesus, but Jesus only shows up briefly a couple of times and is kind of tangential to the story.
Yeah.
Um, so it's interesting when Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall came out. That was censored in Britain.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
And
I forgot about
country
that. Yeah, I
citizens.
remember that now.
Yeah, well, you're only another brick in the wall. It was, oh no, you're going against higher education. How dare you? We want an populace, and people are far too fragile. They must be protected, apparently. So,
That was right around that same time period too. It was like, the very end of the '70s, I think, when The Wall came out. And I was raised Catholic. I went to a Catholic grade school. I can see that all happening, like you just said. There being the controversies that there were from the Catholic Church about that movie. I left Catholicism a long time ago, so I certainly would not have those same problems with the movie. But they get a little particular about things. I'll just leave it at that. They get a little particular about things.
Well, so much of our conception of what's dangerous is it's the window has shifted. So I remember when my kids were little, there was a brief, very brief time where we would say, uh, parents were told, don't let your kids have the computer in their room because if they have private access, then the internet will invade their minds and strangers will groom them, and it will be a total, terribly dangerous situation for your children. And that held sway with parents everywhere until suddenly every kid had a phone, which
Hmm.
they,
Yeah.
and
So
then that advice was at the window. It's like, where's the kid? He's up in his room with his phone,
yeah,
talking to his,
yeah,
and what's he doing? I don't know. But instead of trying to protect him, we went for literacy with the internet instead, and they both turned out okay. So it's
well, that's good. That's good. I can see how they probably would with you as one of their parents, and I know your wife is a wonderful person too. So
she.
wow. Well, yeah, and yeah, that's such a great song. Always look on the bright side of life. They had some other funny songs too. Like I remember the "I'm a Lumberjack" song. Do you remember
Hmm.
that one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm
Uh,
Canadian. No?
yeah, that's another funny one. Actually, that's a show that I'd like to rewatch. The Monty Python's Flying Circus TV series. Oh, so funny, and their movies too. I remember the first rated R movie I ever saw was, oh gosh, it was the last movie that they did. Now I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, kids, do your homework on that one too. Early '80s, whatever that one was. But I think it's my turn, right?
Yep. I'm out.
Okay. Well, this is one of the first novelty songs and funny songs I experienced as a child. I think my father had bought. He wasn't much for like pop music ever. He always liked stuff that was always probably like 20 years older than whatever time period it was. Uh, but he had like a lot of orchestral type things. But he had the 45 of Chuck Berry's number one song, "My Ding-a-Ling."
Oh,
Do you remember my Ding-a-Ling, Robert?
I think my most hated song on this list might be "Supplanted." I I really hate Disco Duck, but I think I hate that song more.
Now, as a child, I thought it was the funniest thing ever. I probably heard it not long after it was popular. What the version that he put out in '72 that was a hit was actually a live version. He had done it in concert. I think he had recorded it previously, maybe a couple years before that on a studio album. But the song goes back much further than that. It actually was originally recorded by someone named Dave Bartholomew in 1952. And there'd been like several artists that did it, but Chuck is the one that had the number one hit with it. And for those that don't know, it contains like a lot of, oh, I guess, what would you call it? Like sexual innuendo or like innuendos about the ding-a-ling being related to like the male penis. Um, and it was
As the
actually quite
female one,
controversial. What'd you say?
as opposed to the female penis.
Yes.
Here's the thing, buddy. Innuendo suggests some kind of veil of subtlety.
But apparently a lot of radio stations refused to play the song back then because of the nature. Because not only was it the lyrics, but then, like I said, this was a live thing where the audience was reacting to some of the lines that he was singing in it. Where again was very similar to a male penis. So it was very funny. Apparently, it's based on the melody of a 19th century folk song called "Little Brown Jug." So this song had quite a history. But so you weren't the biggest fan of my ding-a-ling, huh?
I wish you'd phrase that differently.
I know, but it's just kind of fun to say it that way.
It's not fun to say it, buddy. It's wrong. You're a terrible person.
I'm gonna change the name of this episode to Buddy and Robert talk about my ding-a-ling.
Oh no. Oh, canceled. you about
Yeah, Spotify, YouTube, they all cancel me on one day.
it?
So yeah, we're gonna leave leave that there with we're gonna leave my dingling right there.
Yeah, you leave it right there, man.
Yeah, man. All right, so you got any more, or was that, did we cover all
No,
yours?
we did all mine. I think we've done all yours, haven't we?
All right, I think we have.
We did it.
We did it. We did it. That was fun, man.
It only took 8 hours. It was great.
I've only got 7 hours, 57 minutes here on my clock, so
He'll have to do a lot of editing.
I don't edit this stuff. Yeah. So, hey, thank you so much for being on the show.
This was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad. And you know, we talked beforehand that we might want to at some point. Why don't we commit to the show we talked about doing? You
Yeah, I
want
don't
to do that?
remember what it was, but I'm sure it was brilliant.
It was.
WKRP.
People who are listening to the audio version don't see me fondling my own chest right now, but on my chest is WKRP in Cincinnati, which is a very popular television show that ran on CBS in the late 70s into the early 80s.
Once
And
again, choice of words, buddy. Fondling your chest. He's wearing a T-shirt that said WKRP in Cincinnati.
this is WKRP in Cincinnati on my chest. But anyway, yeah, I'd like us to talk about WKRP in Cincinnati, which was boy, quite an iconic show for its time. It was about a rock and roll, a newly formed. Well, not it was a radio station that played like soft, like beautiful music, you know, real cheesy kind of stuff. And then this guy comes in and turns it into a rock and roll station, and it causes all kinds of mayhem for the owner of the station and just quite a show. We'll talk about it sometime.
There's so many great jokes and scenes from that. I loved uh, where Dr. Johnny Fever does the um, change of the format
Oh
show.
yeah,
Um,
that was
and
great.
Booger. And, and people who don't think they really know the show, every American Thanksgiving, they play the clip of um, the mall, the Cincinnati Mall has just been bombed by live turkeys. Yeah,
You did that very well.
it's it was such a great show,
Such a
and
great show. So funny. And plus, if you were a music lover of music from back then, music that's still popular now, you heard a lot of great music on there too.
hmm, there's it's funny. I played so much of this comes back to me. It's such a memorable show.
Mhm.
So Tim Reed, who played Venus Flytrap,
Yeah.
he was a former teacher, becomes a DJ, and he was supposed to be Venus Rising, which was cool, but then they ended up with Venus Flytrap somehow. And there's an episode where he teaches a a gang member the details of the atom, how it's
Yes, yes, I remember that very, very well.
it is truly brilliant.
It is.
It's so
It's
well
really
written.
brilliant. Yeah, I love that one.
So, yeah, there's a lot to, yeah,
We
we'll
should
save it
definitely
for
do
that
that. I'm going to, you know, the next time my wife asks me to like, you know, take out the garbage or something like that, I'll be like, I'm sorry, I have to watch these 4 seasons of my DVDs of WKRP in Cincinnati because Robert needs me to be well informed when I do the show with him. So
It's so worth it. I can't think of another comedy that sticks with me quite so much as that does. I mean, I I remember a lot of scenes from MASH and All in the Family and that kind of thing from my early childhood, but WKRP in Cincinnati would be the one that I would go back to watch again.
well, great. Well, I hope you can maybe do that before we do the show at some point.
That would be fun.
All
I
right.
love
Well, folks, you know, keep an eye out for that, an ear out for that, depending on how you partake in the Pop and Prose podcast. And I did mention earlier that Robert is an author. He's got many books out there, so take a look for them. And
that.
he's also on Medium. Look for both of us on Medium.
You'll find my work on my author site, which is allthatjazz.com. Jazz is with two Z's, two Z's if you're nasty.
And you can. Oh, I wanted to mention this too. Are you on Blue Sky? I can't remember.
I am, yeah.
Okay. I have been enjoying the heck out of Blue Sky lately. And one of the things that I like on there is because I'm a music fan, there's all kinds of challenges on there. Every month they do these just like people like me, people like you can just create their own challenge and they get a hashtag attached to it. And one started today. We're recording this appropriately enough on April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. So to do a show about funny songs, I think was very fitting for today. But this challenge that just started today, I actually started this. It's called Fools Rush In Songs. It's under that hashtag. And basically it's a challenge all about anything related to fools, jokes, lies, tricks, anything that you can lump in there. So if you have any desire to maybe if you're on Blue Sky or maybe you're thinking about going to Blue Sky and you're a music lover, you might want to do come and play this fun challenge with me. You like for example today I posted the song "Fooled Around and Fell in Love" by Elvin Bishop. You probably know that one, Robert. It was a popular song in the '70s, and people are doing things like that. I've seen other people post like, "What a Fool Believes" by the Doobie Brothers, and
Like
it's
that one.
just this silly thing you can just play off of and have fun with. So if you're interested in something like that, check it out. It's the Fools Russian Song Challenge on Blue Sky.
That sounds like fun homework.
There we go. Maybe you'll join in too. But Robert, I thank you so much for being on the show. Had a blast talking with you, man.
Always fun.
And you make sure you go and do your homework and listen to Fish Heads.
All right.
And everyone who's watched or listened today, I thank you very much for being a part of Pop and Prose. No matter what your day entails, I hope you have a blast enjoying it. So take care, everybody. See you around.